My hands rested gently over my round, 8-month belly as I made my way through the hospital halls, a thermal bag swinging at my side with George's favorite sandwich inside, turkey and Swiss on sourdough, with that fancy mustard he insisted on. That morning, the September air carried the smell of rain through our window, and George had leaned down, kissed my forehead and whispered, "Take care of our little miracle. Our little miracle." Those words still echoed in my head as I walked toward his office at Metropolitan General, where he worked as a cardiologist. We had prayed and fought for this baby for years, 3 years of doctor visits, tears, and 2 devastating miscarriages. So when those 2 pink lines finally appeared, George had broken down in the kitchen, crying real tears as sunlight poured through the windows. I remember whispering to myself, Dr. Violet Louise, practicing my married name as if saying it would make the future feel closer. I was 6 months away from defending my dissertation in psychology, and George already had dreams lined up for us: the house, family barbecues, teaching our little girl to ride a bike. Everything felt so close, almost within reach. By the time I reached the cardiology wing, my ankles ached, but pride pushed me forward. Nurses hurried by, monitors beeped in steady rhythm, and at the end of the hall, I saw his nameplate glinting under the fluorescent light. Dr. George Louis, Cardiology. My heart swelled. George and I had met back in my undergrad days when I was volunteering at the hospital. He was a resident, then confident, magnetic, with those dark eyes that made you feel like he saw the deepest parts of you. On our 3rd date, he brushed a strand of hair from my face and said, "You're going to change the world, Violet. And I want to be there beside you when you do." I knocked softly on his door, expecting his warm voice to call out, "Come in." But silence greeted me. Then a shuffle. Strange. I checked my watch, 2:15. He should have been free. Slowly, I turned the handle and stepped inside. The bag slipped from my hands and hit the floor with a dull thud. George was there, pressed against his desk, his white coat hanging open, his hands tangled in the auburn hair of a woman I knew instantly. Stacy Ryder, the new nursing supervisor, the one who always just happened to swing by when George and I ate lunch, the one who complimented my pregnancy glow but looked at me with eyes colder than ice. They weren't just kissing. They were devouring each other, her legs wrapped around him, charts scattered on the floor like forgotten trash. His hands moved over her body with a confidence that told me this wasn't their first time. It was a routine, a habit. Time froze. The same hands that had caressed my swollen belly that very morning were now pulling at her clothes. Her fingers were at his belt. My entire world shattered in seconds. A sound ripped from my throat, half gasp, half sob. They jumped apart like guilty teenagers. George's face drained white, then flushed red. Stacy adjusted her skirt, her lipstick smeared, her hair wild, her eyes glittering with satisfaction. "Violet," George's voice cracked. "Don't." My voice was barely a whisper. "Don't you dare say my name." And then Stacy laughed. Actually laughed. Like this was funny. "Well, this is awkward," she said, her tone light and mocking, as if she'd been caught sneaking dessert instead of wrecking my marriage. George shot her a desperate look, but she ignored him, eyes locked on me like a predator circling prey. "You know, Violet, I've been waiting for this moment. It's exhausting pretending to like you at all those hospital events." "Stacy, stop," George muttered, but his voice carried no strength. "Stop what, darling?" she smirked, running her hand across his chest like she owned him. "Stop telling her the truth? That you haven't loved her in years? That you only stayed out of pity after the miscarriages?" Her words sliced through me, each one a knife twisting deeper. "That's not true," I whispered, but even to me my voice sounded hollow. George's silence screamed louder than anything. "Oh, sweetheart," Stacy cooed, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Did you really think a man like George would be satisfied with someone like you? Look at you, swollen, waddling around. Tell me, when's the last time you even saw your own feet?" "George," my voice cracked as I looked at him. "Tell her to stop. Tell her she's lying." But when his eyes met mine, I didn't see anger or guilt. I saw pity, and somehow that was worse. "Violet," he said softly, "we need to talk. But not here. Not like this. Not like this." The words ripped something open inside me. "Not like what, George? Not like walking in on my husband kissing another woman in his office? Not like finding out my whole marriage is a lie, while I'm 8 months pregnant with your child? Our child, he corrected quietly. And that's when Stacy laughed. Sharp, cruel, like glass breaking. Is it though, George? She said, her eyes glinting. Didn't you tell me about those little business trips she took during her fertile window? All those psychology conferences. Her words hit me like a punch. My hands flew to my belly on instinct. How dare you? I whispered, shaking. How dare either of you question this child? Oh, please, Stacy sneered, stepping closer. The grieving wife routine is old. George and I have been together for 8 months. 8 months, Violet. Do the math. 8 months. The same as my pregnancy. The realization made my stomach twist. They started their affair the moment I got pregnant. Right after George cried in our kitchen, swearing this baby was our miracle. Something inside me snapped. Get away from my husband, I said, my voice stronger this time. Your husband. Stacy smirked. Honey, he hasn't been your husband in any way that matters for a long time. Trust me, I'd know. She stepped closer, her perfume wrapping around me, sweet and suffocating. I'd smelled it before, clinging to George's clothes. I told myself it was just hospital chemicals. But it wasn't. Her voice dropped to a whisper meant only for me. He was with me the night you thought you were in labor last month. Remember? He told you he was stuck in surgery. He was stuck all right between my... Stop. I cut her off, my hand raised. Just stop. But she only smiled, cold and cruel. You want to know what he says about you, Violet? How you cry too much. How you're needy. How he regrets marrying you. Stacy, enough, George finally muttered, but he still didn't move. He just stood there watching me crumble. No, George, she snapped. She deserves the truth. She deserves to know you're leaving her after the baby comes. That we've already looked at apartments. That every time she played housewife, you were lying to her face. The room tilted around me. I grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling, but Stacy blocked me. Where do you think you're going, Violet? Running away? That's what you do, isn't it? No wonder George needed a real woman. Move, I said through clenched teeth. Make me, she challenged, her lips curling into a smile. I looked past her, silently begging George to step in, to choose me, to protect me, to show me even a shred of the man I thought I'd married. But he just shoved his hands in his pockets and stared at the floor. Move, I repeated louder this time. Stacy's grin widened. Or what? You'll call your uncle? Go crying to director's son about how mean I'm being. My blood went cold. Uncle Elliot. She knew. That's right, she purred, watching my shock. It's amazing what George tells me in bed. Isn't it, darling? Stacy, George finally snapped. That's enough. Is it? She hissed, spinning toward him. Or am I just being honest? This woman has been living in a fairy tale for 2 years. Someone has to wake her up. She leaned in so close I could feel her breath. Your husband doesn't love you. Your marriage is dead. And honestly, looking at you right now, I can't blame him. That's when I made my mistake. I tried to push past her. She shoved me back hard. My pregnant body stumbled off balance. I reached for something, anything to hold on to, but there was nothing. I hit the ground on my side, arms wrapped protectively over my belly. Pain shot through me, but then something worse came. Stacy stood over me, her face twisted with rage. Stay down, she spat. Stay where you belong. And then before I could move, she kicked me. Hard. Right in my stomach. The pain was indescribable, physical, emotional, spiritual. I curled around my baby, gasping as she raised her foot again. Stop. The voice that cut through the air wasn't George's. It was deeper. Fierce. What the hell is going on here? I turned my head. Uncle Elliot stood in the doorway, 2 nurses right behind him. His face was pure fury. Stacy froze. The color drained from her cheeks. Director's son, I can explain. Explain this. Uncle Elliot's voice thundered as he rushed to my side. He knelt, hands trembling but steady as he checked my pulse. Someone call 911. Now. Uncle Elliot. I gasped, trying to sit up. The baby. Don't move, sweetheart, he said firmly, his voice both calm and shaking with rage. Just breathe. Help is coming. His eyes shot to George and Stacy. They darkened like a storm. George finally stammered. Violet, I'm sorry. I didn't know she would. "Shut up!" Uncle Elliot cut him off, his voice like ice. "Don't say another word. Either of you." Sirens wailed in the distance. And then I felt it. Warmth spreading between my legs. My water had broken. But it was too soon. 8 months is too soon. "The baby's coming," I whispered, terror gripping me as the contractions started to tear through my body. Uncle Elliot squeezed my hand and whispered, "We're going to take care of you, Violet. You and the baby. I promise it's going to be okay." But even as he said it, I could see the fear hiding in his eyes. And in that moment, while paramedics rushed into the room, while George stood frozen against the wall, and Stacy shrank into the corner like the coward she was, I made a promise deep in my heart to my unborn daughter. This wasn't the end. Not even close. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Before I continue, drop a comment with the country you're watching from. I love seeing where my global family is tuning in. And if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe. Your support keeps these powerful stories coming. Now let's get back to it. The delivery room at Metropolitan General had seen thousands of births, but mine was different. My little girl came into the world 8 weeks early, barely 4 pounds, fighting for every breath. And while she was being born, something else was born inside me, to a cold, steady rage that rooted itself deep in my bones. I named her Mabel, after my grandmother who survived the Great Depression with nothing but sheer willpower. They whisked her away to the NICU before I even got to hold her, but in the split second our eyes met, I knew this child was a fighter, just like the women who came before her. "She's going to be fine," Dr. Beckham reassured me. "Tiny but strong. Her lungs are working, and her vitals are stable." Uncle Elliot held my hand as they wheeled me to recovery. His usually perfect suit was rumpled, his silver hair out of place, but his grip was steady. "I've already contacted our legal team," he told me. "George and Ms. Ryder are suspended pending investigation." Suspended? My voice sounded distant, the medication dulling the edges. His jaw tightened, the same way it used to when he defended me as a little girl at family gatherings. "Violet, what I saw today, that was assault. In my hospital. This isn't just personal anymore." Even through the haze of painkillers, I heard voices in the hallway. George begging, Stacy defensive. Elliot walked to the door, his voice calm but sharp as steel. "If either of you comes within 50 feet of my niece or her daughter, security will remove you permanently. This is your only warning." "Elliot, please," George's voice cracked. "I need to see her. I need to explain." "You need a lawyer," Elliot cut him off. "Both of you do." The footsteps faded and Elliot came back to my side. "They're gone. They won't bother you again." But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Stacy's face twisted with hatred as she kicked my stomach. I heard George's silence when I begged him to protect me. I felt my perfect little marriage crumble into dust. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my sister Gina. "On my way. Flight lands in 3 hours. Don't do anything until I get there." Gina, my brilliant, fierce older sister who never trusted George's charm. A corporate lawyer in Chicago, ruthless in negotiations, unstoppable in court. If I needed a warrior in my corner, it was her. The next hours blurred into doctor updates, legal conversations, and quiet talks with Uncle Elliot about what came next. But when Gina burst through my hospital door at 11 p.m., hair wild from the airport and eyes blazing, I almost broke. "Oh, Vi," she whispered, pulling me gently into her arms. "I'm so sorry. Have you seen her?" I nodded. "Mabel. She's so small but perfect." Gina smiled through tears. "She has your chin. And your stubborn streak. I can already tell." We sat together in silence, just sisters who'd weathered every storm life had thrown at us. She had stood by me through miscarriages, through doubts, even as my maid of honor at a wedding she never believed in. And now she was here again. "Tell me everything," she finally said. "Don't leave anything out." So I did. Every betrayal, every cruel word, every humiliating detail of George and Stacy. She listened without interrupting, her green eyes growing harder with each truth. When I finished, she leaned back, her voice like ice. "They don't even realize what they've done, do they?" "What do you mean?" I asked. Her smile was sharp. "Vi, they assaulted you. In front of witnesses. At Elliot's hospital. Do you have any idea how strong our case is?" We're going to destroy them professionally, financially, personally. Stacy will wish she never touched you, and George, he'll regret the day he underestimated you. Gina, I just want... What? To forgive him? To fix it for the sake of the baby? She shook her head. Vi, some bridges can't be rebuilt. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. This time they face consequences. She pulled out her phone, scrolling. I'm calling Melinda Florence, best divorce attorney on the East Coast. She owes me a favor. We'll protect you and Mabel, no matter what. I whispered. I don't know if I'm ready for this. You don't have to be, she said firmly. That's what family is for. You heal. Take care of that baby girl. Let me fight. And that's exactly what she did. Over the next week, as Mabel got stronger in the NICU and I slowly healed, Gina launched what she called Operation Justice. Mrs. Florence came to the hospital herself, silver hair, kind eyes, but a reputation for being ruthless in court. She looked me straight in the eye. Stacy Ryder has already been charged with assault and battery. Because you were pregnant, the penalties are much harsher. As for George, he may not have kicked you, but adultery, abandonment, emotional distress, he won't walk away clean. I need you to understand this case will draw attention. Are you ready for that? I thought of Mabel fighting for every breath, of George's betrayal, of Stacy's violence, and I said, let them look. I have nothing to hide. Mrs. Florence smiled. Then let's begin. 3 weeks later, I finally brought Mabel home. The nursery George and I once painted together felt like a tomb of broken promises. But Gina moved into the guest room, filling the house with her fiery energy. Without her, I would have drowned in legal paperwork, sleepless nights, and grief. George keeps calling. She told me one morning as I fed Mabel. 15 times yesterday. Elliot had to threaten him with a restraining order. What does he want? To see the baby. To explain. To beg. Typical. Her tone was flat. Mrs. Florence says document everything, it'll help with custody. The word custody made my stomach twist. The thought of Mabel spending weekends with George and maybe Stacy was unbearable. Gina read my face. Don't worry. He won't get unsupervised visitation. Not after what happened. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, but I knew it was him. Please, Violet. I know I messed up. Mabel is my daughter too. Let me explain. Let me fix this. I deleted it. Just like the last 27 messages. The hearing for Stacy's assault charges is next week. And this time I'm ready. I want to look her in the eye and make sure the world knows exactly what she did. As the days went on, I started realizing that George's betrayal went so much deeper than I ever imagined. It began with a stack of papers Gina stumbled across while helping me sort through Mabel's endless hospital bills. Tucked inside was a life insurance policy on me. $2 million. Taken out just 6 months ago. Vi, did you know about this? Gina's voice was steady, but her eyes gave her away. I shook my head. No. Why would he? The words barely made it past my lips. When did he take it out? March 15th, she said quietly. Right around the time his thing with Stacy started. We just stared at each other across the kitchen table. Mabel slept peacefully in her little carrier between us, and all I could think was how heavy that policy felt in my hands. He could have told me. He should have told me. But he didn't. People take out life insurance all the time, I whispered, though my own voice didn't even sound convincing, especially when there's a baby on the way. On a psychology student with barely an income? For $2 million? And he didn't tell you. Gina was already pulling out her phone. We need to talk to Mrs. Florence. And Uncle Elliot needs to dig into George's access to meds and records. I didn't want to say what was already forming in my mind, but Gina, sharp as always, went straight there. The false labor last month, she murmured. Remember? George said he was in surgery, but he wasn't. He was with Stacy. What did you eat that day? Drink. My hands started to tremble. He made me tea. Said it would help with the Braxton Hicks. Some herbal stuff he said came from the hospital pharmacy. And you went into false labor an hour later. We both went silent. But we didn't need words, the truth was starting to line itself up. Piece by terrifying piece. He's a doctor, Gina said slowly. He has access to things that could cause contractions. Things that wouldn't show up on a normal test. Why? My voice cracked. Why would he want me to go into early labor? Her eyes met mine. Because premature babies don't always survive, and grieving widowers get a lot of sympathy. Plus $2 million. The room spun around me. Every drink he'd brought me, every vitamin, every tea he claimed was good for the baby. All of it replayed in my head in a sickening loop. We need proof, I whispered. We'll get it, Gina promised. Mrs. Florence knows people at the FDA. We'll test everything. I swallowed hard. If this is true, then George isn't just a cheater. He's... I couldn't finish. An attempted murderer, Gina finished for me. The next days blurred together in a fog of secret plans and late-night whispers. Uncle Elliot pulled George's prescription records. Gina set up cameras around the house and changed every lock. Mrs. Florence called in favors. And me? I just tried to keep breathing. When the results came back, I was holding Mabel's bottle. Mrs. Florence didn't waste time with pleasantries. They found it. Myoprostol. In the tea. The world dropped out from under me. My knees buckled and I had to sit down. So he really... My throat closed. Yes, she said quietly. He tried to kill you. And your baby. For money. And for Stacy. By October, George was standing in a courtroom, hiding behind an expensive suit and 2 lawyers with billboard smiles. He pled not guilty, as if that could erase everything. Stacy followed, her hair greasy, her face pale. She whispered not guilty, too, like a child caught with bloody hands. I sat in the front row, surrounded by the people who refused to let me fight alone. Rosa, the ex-military nanny Gina insisted on hiring, was at home protecting Mabel. When the reporters swarmed outside, Mrs. Florence tried to shield me. No comment, she kept repeating. But then something inside me snapped. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I turned to the cameras, my voice steady, my heart pounding. George Louis tried to murder me and our unborn daughter for insurance money so he could run off with his mistress. When the drugs didn't work, Stacy Ryder attacked me. But my daughter survived because she's a fighter. And I survived because I have a family who refused to let me be alone in this. The crowd hushed, cameras clicking. And to every woman who has ever been betrayed, who has ever been made to feel like she's disposable, hear me. You are stronger than you think. And you deserve justice. The ride back home was heavy with silence. Gina held my hand the whole way, her grip steady, while Mrs. Florence stayed busy taking calls from reporters and her legal team. When we finally pulled into the driveway, Rosa was already at the door with Mabel in her arms. All quiet here, she said in her usual calm, professional way. Then she added, though a lot of flowers and gifts have been dropped off. I logged everything and stored it in the garage for safety. That night, I sat feeding Mabel her bottle with the news on in the background. They were replaying clips from George's arraignment when my phone buzzed. The number wasn't familiar, but something told me to answer. Hello? Is this Violet Louise? A woman's nervous voice asked. She had a soft southern accent. Yes, who's this? My name is Sarah Chin. I used to work at Metropolitan General. I saw the news about your husband. I think I have information you need. My heart started racing. Information about Stacy Ryder? About what happened to Dr. Beckham. Dr. Beckham, the doctor who had delivered Mabel so kind, so steady in those chaotic hours in the ER. I'd heard she left the hospital suddenly and moved to another state. Can we meet? Sarah asked. Somewhere private. I don't feel safe talking about this over the phone. The next morning, Gina came with me to a coffee shop across town. Rosa stayed with Mabel, under strict instructions to call me at the first sign of trouble. Sarah turned out to be a petite woman in her 30s. Her hands trembled when she lifted her cup, her eyes darting like she was scared of being overheard. I can't hold this in anymore, she said without small talk. I can't sleep at night knowing what I know. Stacy, she's done this before. I leaned closer. Done what before? Not the exact same thing, Sarah whispered. But she has a pattern. She targets women, breaks up relationships, uses people for her own gain. She pulled a manila folder out of her purse. Dr. Beckham was one of them. She was married, had 2 young kids. Stacy went after her husband, a pharmaceutical sales rep, who came to the hospital often. I felt sick. What happened? Stacy seduced him. When Dr. Beckham found out and confronted them, Stacy turned it around on her. Claimed Dr. Beckham was stealing meds from the pharmacy. She even planted evidence in doctored records to make it look like she had a gambling addiction. My stomach dropped. And she lost everything, Sarah said, sliding the folder toward me. Her job, her license, her family. Stacy got promoted. Inside the folder were copies of medication logs, inventory sheets, even surveillance stills of Stacy sneaking into the pharmacy after hours. Gina leaned forward, her lawyer instincts kicking in. Do you have proof this was staged? I do, Sarah said, voice shaking. I signed forms for her that night, thinking it was normal paperwork. But it was all a setup. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. I was scared to speak up. Stacy had powerful friends. But when I saw what she did to you attacking a pregnant woman, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Her words hit me like a punch. Dr. Beckham had been another casualty of Stacy's cruelty. Another woman destroyed. And then Sarah added quietly, she was planning something for you too. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? She asked a lot of questions about you. Your family. Your uncle. Your financials. She was especially interested in your anxiety medication, the one you stopped when you got pregnant. She wanted to make it look like you had a drug problem. If the misoprostol had worked, if you'd lost the baby, she was going to frame you. Make it look like you caused it yourself. The walls of the coffee shop seemed to close in. My chest tightened as I realized the depth of Stacy's plan. She hadn't just wanted George. She wanted my entire life ruined. My reputation. My credibility. My freedom. Will you testify? Gina asked Sarah firmly. That's why I came, Sarah said, wiping her eyes. I can't let her keep destroying lives. We went through everything she brought, page by page, until the picture of who Stacy really was became painfully clear. Stacy Ryder wasn't just a mistress or a jealous woman. She was a predator, calculated, ruthless, willing to destroy anyone who stood in her way. But she made one fatal mistake. She underestimated me. That afternoon, Mrs. Florence called. The prosecutor is adding new charges, she said. Pattern of behavior, evidence tampering, fraud. And we've tracked down Dr. Beckham. She's agreed to testify. And George? I asked. His lawyers are trying for a plea deal. They're claiming he was manipulated. That he's just as much a victim as you are. My blood boiled. He tried to kill me, Melinda. He tried to kill our daughter. I know, she said firmly. And we're not letting him walk away from that. But even with all this progress, something didn't sit right. Stacy had been too calm in court, too sure of herself. And George's lawyers were far too expensive for what I thought he could afford. Then Rosa handed me a manila envelope delivered by courier. Inside was a photo of George and Stacy in a hotel room with another man, Vincent Caruso, a name I recognized from the news, tied to organized crime. A typed note was attached. Your husband owes a lot of money. The insurance wasn't about a new life. It was about staying alive. My hands shook as the puzzle pieces fell into place. George's fancy lawyers. Stacy's confidence. The elaborate schemes. They weren't just reckless lovers, they were connected to people who knew how to make problems disappear. I called Gina immediately, my voice shaking. We need to get Mrs. Florence. Now. She froze when she saw the photo. Oh my God. Violet, this isn't just about an affair anymore. This is organized crime. I looked down at Mabel, sleeping peacefully in her carrier. My little girl. My reason for everything. No, I said quietly. This is war. And they're about to find out what happens when they come for my family. The FBI confirmed it. George had been laundering money through fake hospital purchases to cover his gambling debts with Caruso's crew. The game had changed. But so had I. I wasn't that naive woman walking into her husband's office with a turkey sandwich anymore. I was a mother with everything to fight for. And nothing left to lose. The money wasn't just about running away with Stacy. That's what Agent Rebecca Santos told me when we sat down in Mrs. Florence's office. George owed nearly $3 million to Caruso's people. If the life insurance had paid out, it would have cleared his debt and bought him freedom. And when the pills didn't work? I asked quietly. Rebecca's expression hardened. That's when they moved to Plan B. Stacy's attack on you wasn't random, it was meant to finish what the drugs couldn't. If you lost the baby and died from complications, it would have looked like a tragic accident after a domestic fight. The coldness of it all should have broken me. The fact that they'd plotted out my death, my daughter's death, like it was just business. But instead of crushing me, it did the opposite. It turned every piece of pain into steel. I looked Rebecca straight in the eye and asked, "What do you need from me?" She gave me a grim smile. "We need your help to bring them all down." The plan was dangerous. I would meet George at our old house under the excuse of talking about custody for Mabel. I'd wear a wire. FBI agents would be nearby. "He'll try to manipulate you," Rebecca warned. "He'll apologize. He'll say he was forced. He'll promise to change. Don't believe him. And whatever happens, do not let him know we're aware of his ties to Caruso." My stomach twisted. "And if he figures it out? Then you get out. Immediately. Your safety comes first." Gina hated the plan. Sitting with me in my new apartment, the one Rosa had found in a building with cameras and a doorman, she shook her head over and over. "It's too risky. What if something goes wrong? What if he realizes you're wired?" I looked down at Mabel, my tiny miracle. 3 months old now, thriving, smiling, her little cheeks round and soft. She was the reason I couldn't back down. "Then we lose our chance to stop him, Gina. They tried to kill us once. If we don't end this, they'll try again, or hurt someone else." The meeting was set for Tuesday. When I called George, he'd sounded almost grateful, hopeful, his voice dripping with that familiar charm. If it hadn't been so dangerous, it would have been pathetic. The night before, Mrs. Florence reminded me, "Let him talk. Don't push too hard. Anything he says can help us, not just in the criminal case, but in custody too." Tuesday morning was gray and cold, fitting for what I had to face. Driving back to that house, the house I thought I'd raised my children in, made my chest ache. Not because I missed him, but because of the life I thought I had. George was waiting in the kitchen. He looked awful, thin, pale, dark circles under his eyes. But when he saw me, his face lit up with desperate hope. "Violet, thank you for coming. Thank you for giving me this chance." "This isn't about second chances," I said flatly. "This is about Mabel. What's best for her." He nodded eagerly. "Of course. She's what matters most." He motioned to the table where he'd set out coffee and pastries, my old favorites. "Please sit. We need to talk." I stayed standing. "Talk about what?" "About how you tried to kill me for insurance money. About how Stacy attacked me while I was pregnant with you standing there doing nothing." His face crumpled. For a second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "I never meant for any of that to happen," he said, his voice breaking. "I got mixed up with the wrong people. I made terrible choices. But I never wanted you hurt." I kept my face neutral, hiding what I knew. "I had gambling debts," he went on. "I borrowed money from people I shouldn't have. They threatened us. You, me, the baby. The insurance policy, it was the only way to keep us safe." I recognized the pattern now, the way he twisted everything, painted himself as the victim, made betrayal sound like sacrifice. "So your plan was to murder me?" I asked coldly. "No. God, no. That was never the plan." His eyes pleaded with me. "The medication was just supposed to induce early labor. Premature babies have complications sometimes. Insurance companies don't ask questions when it looks natural." My blood turned to ice. He was admitting it. Talking about killing our daughter like it was just business. "And if I died too?" I whispered. His silence told me everything. "And Stacy?" I asked sharply. "Was using her part of your brilliant plan too?" For the first time, his mask slipped. His face hardened. "Stacy was a mistake. A weakness. But she became useful. She had access to records. Prescriptions. She knew how to work the system. Useful enough to help you frame Dr. Beckham," I shot back. His head snapped up, eyes wide. "How do you know about?" "I know a lot, George. Like how you laundered money through fake purchases. Like how Vincent Caruso owns 3 million of your soul." The color drained from his face. "Violet, you don't understand. If they find out, they'll..." "What? Try to kill me?" "Already been there. Survived it." He glanced at the phone and I moved quickly, blocking him. "Don't even think about it," I said firmly. "You're wired," he said flatly, realization hitting him. His voice turned cold. This was all a setup. Just like you. Just like our marriage. Then his eyes changed desperate, dangerous. You don't know what you've done. Caruso doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget. Maybe. But at least I'm not a murderer. That's when he lunged. George was bigger, stronger. But I'd been training. And more than that, I was fighting for my daughter's life while he was only fighting for himself. I dodged, drove my knee hard into his stomach. As he staggered, the front door burst open. FBI. Hands where we can see them. In seconds, George was cuffed and on the ground. Rebecca rushed to me. Are you hurt? Did he say anything? Everything we need, I said, pulling out the wire. The insurance, the medication, Caruso, it's all on there. As they dragged George away, he looked back at me. His voice was low but sharp. This isn't over, Violet. It's never going to be over. But he was wrong. It was over. The trials of George Luis and Stacy Ryder became the biggest criminal cases of the year. The press called it the hospital betrayal case. Court TV aired every detail. Overnight, I became something I never wanted, a public figure. A symbol of betrayal, survival, and justice. George's trial came first. The evidence was damning: the wire, the medical records, the money trail. His lawyers tried everything. That he was coerced, that I'd manipulated evidence, even that planning my death was somehow protecting me. None of it worked. Witness after witness told the truth. Dr. Beckham about how Stacy ruined her life. Sarah Chin about Stacy's patterns of fraud. My uncle about finding me on the floor, bleeding, while Stacy looked on in satisfaction. But the most shocking witness was Vincent Caruso himself. Arrested alongside his men, he cut a deal with prosecutors. On the stand, he looked ordinary, balding, middle-aged, in a nice suit. But his words carried weight. Dr. Luis owed us from gambling. He came to us with a scheme about insurance fraud. We told him, handle it however you want. If his wife had to die for it, that was his choice. The way he spoke so casually about ending my life still haunts me. It was chilling, but it also sealed his fate. The jury didn't take long, less than 4 hours. Guilty. On everything. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, laundering, racketeering. The judge handed George 35 years to life. No parole for at least 25. When the bailiff took him away in chains, he looked at me one last time. No apology, no regret. Just pure bitterness that his plan had failed. Stacy's trial was shorter, but just as satisfying. She faced charges for attacking me and for helping George set up that fake story about Dr. Beckham. She even tried to play the victim, claiming George had swept her off her feet and lied to her. I never meant to hurt anyone, she sniffled, tissues in hand. The prosecutor didn't let her off easy. So you just decided to kick a pregnant woman in the stomach? Stacy stammered. I was angry. I wasn't thinking. And when it came to the lies about Dr. Beckham, that was George's idea too. Excuse after excuse. But the evidence didn't lie, and neither did the jury. They found her guilty on every count. 15 years. 10 for what she did to me and Mabel. 5 for ruining Dr. Beckham's career. Before sentencing, the judge looked her straight in the eye. You've shown cruelty and manipulation without an ounce of remorse. You attacked a pregnant woman. You destroyed an innocent doctor's career. There's no excuse. As they led her away, she spat at me. This isn't justice. It's revenge. I leaned in just enough so she could hear me. Sometimes, Stacy, I whispered, they're the same thing. 2 years later, I stood in front of a packed lecture hall. My dissertation on trauma recovery and growth after abuse had just been awarded top honors. I'd been offered a teaching position, assistant professor, focusing on helping survivors rebuild. Looking out at all those eager faces, I told them what I had learned. Survival isn't just about making it through. It's about building something stronger on the other side. Gina was in the front row, glowing with pride. Uncle Elliot had Mabel on his lap, 2 years old now, fierce and stubborn like her mama. She had George's eyes but none of his darkness. After class, we met Dr. Beckham at our usual coffee spot. She'd won her appeal and gotten her license back. She was back at Elliot's hospital, her teenagers finally home with her again after their father's arrest. She smiled at me and asked, "How does it feel?" I didn't even have to think. "Like justice," I said. "Like the world finally makes sense again." George was locked away, serving his sentence. He'd be eligible for parole when Mabel was 27 if he lived that long. Vincent Caruso cut a deal, got 12 years. His men got longer. Stacy had tried appealing twice. Both times denied. She wouldn't see freedom until Mabel graduated high school. Meanwhile, Mrs. Florence had helped me secure a settlement from the hospital for letting someone like Stacy slip through the cracks. That money paid my legal bills, my PhD, and Mabel's future. But the part that mattered most? It funded a program at the hospital to support women facing domestic violence.